Well, good afternoon, everybody. And this is Saturday. This is one of those rare times that I'm actually taping, and the show is also being shown on TV at the same time. So hopefully, if the technicalities work out well, the show that we're doing now will be seen next Saturday, and everything should work out okay. But this is Bob Gums, and this is the Concern Forum. And I hope that I have a lot of return friends out there coming back to the Concern family, the Concern Forum family, that is. So how we doing, people? Today, I'm going to call this a casual Saturday because, quite frankly, it's just too damn hot, all right? And I'm not putting on the tie today, okay? So if you folks don't like the look, I'm sorry. But sometimes it gets a bit hot in here. And I just got out the damn subway, and after that, the bus, and the hike up the hill. So this is it. Well, where do we stand? Well, we almost went to war in the last 48 hours. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about President Bone Spur almost taking you to war? Feel good about that? Feel good about a guy that dodged the draft, was it 5 times? Taking your husbands and your sons and your daughters to war? Oh, and don't forget, he almost took you too. I'll tell you what I mean by that. See, we have this crazy idea sometimes that we're the baddest thing on the block since canned beer. Speaking about cans, no, I wish this was a canned beer. This is a cold soda. Okay. But this is not Iraq, okay? And how long have we been messing around in Iraq and Afghanistan? About what, 17, 18 years? And Lord knows, we totally screwed that up at the cost of, close to 5,000 of my comrades dead. And I don't even want to think about all the boys and girls, minus legs, hands, arms, emotional problems, because of the explosive devices now that can rattle the inside of your head, and that the material that holds your brain stable inside your skull, those explosive devices now can, shake it up and cause you all kinds of mental difficulties. And the question then becomes, is it worth it? Don't get me wrong, I'm not a pacifist. There are times when, just like people, nations have to throw down. However, that should never happen behind bullshit. And that's what the whole Iraq-Afghanistan thing was, okay? It was never about weapons of mass destruction, okay? I caught the first one, the first part of the first Gulf War, and I'm glad I didn't catch any more of them. But I did my bit, and I'm telling you, quite frankly, that was a tragic mistake. That's one of the problems that I do have with Obama, because I believe that he should have taken our people out of there. He should have taken our people out, and as he was taking our people out, we should have went in there with a full diplomatic contingent made up of all of our allies, and we should have worked it out from that point on. Now, I know that to a point he tried to do that. I also understand the pressure that he was on, trying to maintain his administration, because what would have happened. Oh, well, as soon as the black guy gets in, he's going to cut and run. Now it was okay for Reagan, to cut and run, which he did. They blew us up at their barracks in Beirut, in Lebanon, and he got the hell out of there. But you didn't hear the conservatives yell about cutting and running. But if Obama had done something like that, they would have screamed bloody murder. But that doesn't stop me from saying that that's the course that America should have followed. Now, this clown, Trump, he plays these stupid-ass games. Well, I'm not going to let them know what I'm going to do. Listen, you pull that kind of bullshit when you're in the declared war, right? Especially nowadays, in the 21st century, when you got the whole world, basically, we are dependent upon each other. Now, those idiots that follow Trump, and, well, we don't need anybody else. They live in the fool's paradise. Yes, you do. Isolationism is it's idiocy, all right? You don't trade with yourself, okay? It's, well, I'm not going to go there. But you don't trade with yourself, all right? That's one of the reasons why nations have navies, to protect their international trade. So the whole idea of, not getting involved with anyone else in the world, that's ridiculous. The problem with Trump is that he is in a position, and he knows it. That's one of the things that really angers me about this guy. He knows that he is not fit for that job. And if you catch him on one of his videos, what was it, about 10 years ago, he even admitted that he would not make a good president. And he's right. And we've seen it. The only thing that he's good at is generating hate among a certain level of the working class, okay, they're ignorant. And see, that's not the type of person that you want as a wartime leader. Now, this business about, I had everything set to go, and then I asked, well, how many people would get killed? And they told me 150. Listen, I'm not claiming to be Douglas MacArthur or Eisenhower, but I spent a good amount of time, a good portion of my life in the military, and a good portion of that time in upper echelon. I spent over 5 years, with the Defense Intelligence Agency, and I dealt with the top secret aspect of things. A president in the situation that he was in, they're briefed, okay? They would have been briefed months and months ago probably from the first time when he first got to the White House, because Iran would have been one of those places that would be on the top of the list. But see, here goes the problem. Trump doesn't like briefings. Okay? He doesn't have the capacity to understand, to sit there and understand what he's being taught. Number one, he doesn't think anybody can teach him a goddamn thing. So how is it a guy that was a draft dodger 5 times doesn't know jack shit about the military? How the hell does he think he knows more than the generals, military intelligence? But that's in his crazy ass head. See? So see, right there you have a damn problem. Our military, just like every competent military on the planet, they already have all this stuff. You might as well call it a hit list. All right, if we have to go to war against, I don't know, Spain, if we have to go to war against Canada, if we have to go to war against Italy, if we have to go to war against Russia, because that's what militaries do. That is our business. Okay, that's what we're paid for. All right, those generals and admirals, that's what they're paid for. That's what they do. Okay, that's why they are professional military people. All this is plotted out. All right? And all Trump has done since he's gotten involved in this presidential thing, he has insulted and belittled the military and military intelligence. Him and his stupid ass sons are walking around saying, oh, well, we have brought the military back. How the hell are you walking around talking about you brought the military back? Back from where? You don't know a goddamn thing about the fucking military. So how the hell do you know? You don't talk to the generals and admirals unless you are lecturing them. So how the hell would you know? This is the insanity. And you had a bunch of guerrillas at that thing he had down there in Orlando. Yeah, Trump, like a bunch of trained SEALs. And I'm saying, people, take a look at yourselves. Think. This guy has no freaking idea what the hell he's talking about. He keeps saying, I know more than the generals. I know more than my intelligence people. Well, I'm just wondering. And I think any person with a little, I know common sense is in the eye of the beholder. But just think about it. If you have this clown, he spent his whole life basically doing shady business deals, and, being a television jerk. And then he turns around and says, well, I know more than my generals. I know more than my military people. I know more than my military intelligence people. Well, when in the hell did he gain all this knowledge that allows him to say that? Where did it come from? How does he obtain this knowledge? Yeah, see, that's exactly what I'm saying. And that's what's so scary about this business. He plays these games. He pushes the envelope out so far, and then he'll do something to try and say, okay, we're going to tone it down. But see, the problem with that type of theory of crisis control. Actually, that's crisis creation, then control. And the problem with that is, what happens if you miscalculate? then we are really up the creek. And see that is what almost happened with us the other day. In this business about jumping up and down on Iran, and I'm going to tell you something. As an American, I am angry, I am humiliated that the head of the Russian government has my president on a leash. I mean, for the first time in history, we have a foreign, and let's face it, he's a dictator. A foreign dictator has my president on a leash. But then by the same token, I have to say, thank God, Putin told, and he said it out for the whole world to hear. Yo, Donald, chill out, baby. This could get real nasty. And when Donald talks about, I felt 150 people, that was too much of a price to pay, he's full of shit. Putin told him, back the hell off, because you are going to start something that you can't finish. And see, when he runs around this election season talking about strength, those of us who are trying to get him out of the White House, we need to stand up and say, no, you showed the world what a jackass you are, because you insulted all of your allies. You were so intent upon tearing up everything that the black boy did before you got in the office that you didn't stop and think that, hey, maybe some of this shit that Obama did was actually pretty damn good. Like the treaty, like that nuclear treaty, that all the conservatives were raising hell about. But our allies seemed to like it. But Donald didn't like it, because Obama was the one that did it. So he said, well, we're going to tear up our end of it, and we're going to tell our allies that if they don't tear up their part of the treaty, we're going to hit them with some kind of economic sanctions if they start to deal with Iran. Now, when you need to be able to talk to Iran, Iran is telling you, hey, we don't want to talk to you. For one thing, Iran is not afraid of them. And I don't think he understands that. So his little games, his bully games and what have you, that's not going to fly here. Iran is saying, leave us the hell alone. Donald, we are not sweating you. And see, I'll tell you something else, too. This whole business about Iran and us, what we really need to do, we need to start from scratch. Because, number one, the American people are, far too many of us are so, I'm not even going to say miseducated. I'm going to say uneducated, because there are just too many things that Americans, or too many Americans, just don't friggin' know. Why is it, for example, that it's always America versus Iran? There's always a problem there. All right? Somebody's always getting pissed off. One's always getting pissed off at the other. All right? There's no peace. Okay? Why is that? Well, some conservative asshole is going to say, oh, well, that's because they're envious of our freedom. No. This might come as a shock to you, but there are very few places in the world that are actually envious of our freedom. Okay? One place where they were envious of our democracy was China, and we blew that big time. But that's another story. But no, Iran is vindictive towards the United States, not because of a question of the envy of our democracy. It's because of something else. Iran is what you would call what we used to know as Persia. All right. Now, many folks don't know history, but they might know a little from going to one of them fundamentalist churches. They might know about Persia from the Bible. Well, what happens? Persia was a monarchy, right, with a king and blah blah blah. It was an empire, okay, and up until the beginnings of World War II, it had a ruling family. And don't ask Pablo, I can't pronounce the name. It starts with a P, if I'm not mistaken. But what happened, they were on the side of the Nazis, okay? And so at the beginning of the war, as a matter of fact, this was even before America was officially in the war, but the Brits were already in it. They got rid of the royal family because they were pro-Nazi, okay? And we got the royal family out of there, and we basically administered, and when I say we, both the Brits and the United States, we had a hand in that. At the end of the war, we tried to develop Iran towards, some type of democracy, okay? And if things are going along, oil boom, and then I'm talking slow because I'm trying to remember the exact sequence of events. And then they had their elections in the late 40s, very early 50s. And what was the name of that guy that they elected prime minister? Oh, damn it. I should have wrote it down last night. But anyway, that's not important. They elected a guy. They had a democratic election, and he was the prime minister. Everything's cool. And then what happens, you got the British oil companies, and the American oil companies, and the head of Iran, right? He says, "Hey, listen, fellas, nice your companies are here, developing the oil resources and what have you. Let's not forget whose oil this is. You're not drilling in London. You're drilling here in Iran. So this is our oil. And we need to sit down and we need to, talk about pricing, how much we're going to charge you for taking our oil." So immediately the Brits talked to our CIA, and this was in the, how you want to call it, the battle days of the CIA, right? And they talked to the son of Teddy Roosevelt, of Rough Rider fame, and also our president back at the turn of the last century. And they come up with a plan to basically accuse that present Iranian government with being communist inspired. Yeah. And so with that, as an excuse. They, paid a few people off. They instigated riots, instability, and said, oh, the communists are creating instability in Iran. This is a threat to the free world. And so what happens? They instigate a revolution. They get rid of the elected government, and they bring back the Shah, the monarchy, the same family that they ran out of town for, being allied with Hitler before the war. They bring these clowns back, and that begins the problems. Because the Shah sets up, the secret police, his own type of Gestapo, and it was very, it's a Gestapo. I mean, that's what Gestapos do. They do Gestapo type shit. Knock on the door at 3 o'clock in the morning, taken away in the middle of the night, the secret dungeons, and people disappear. If they're lucky, they come back maybe a couple of months later, totally broken and whipped, And that goes on up until the 70s. A religious leader, the Ayatollah, he managed to escape. He went to France, and he was in exile in France for a very long time. And he was like the focal point for all the people who were against the Shah. And what happens, fast forward, the Shah gets sick. He has cancer. And he wants to come to the United States for treatment. Now remember, the Shah and their family, they are thick buddies of the United States government. We built up their Air Force, their surface-to-air missile system, their SAM system, their Navy, the works. And we even helped with their intelligence, which in turn they used to help with their Gestapo work to terrorize their own subjects, which has not passed the notice of the people who were fighting for a revolution. And so what happens when the Shah decides to come to the United States, he asked, by this time, President Jimmy Carter, said, hey, Jimmy, man, I want to come over to America to get this treatment. So Carter feels he has no choice because they have been our main boys in the Middle East. Them and a guy named Saddam Hussein in a place called Iraq. So Jimmy says, yeah, man, come on. He's not that enthusiastic about it, but he said, well, hell, deal's a deal. He's been looking out for our interests, so hell, now that he's sick, we can't close the door in his face per se. And what happens, that really sets off a chain reaction of events. And these students in Iran, they really, they were like the vanguard of their revolution, which is being led by the Ayatollah, who eventually, he comes back from France and he comes back to Iran, and he becomes the, physical leader of the revolution, and uh, he takes over the embassy. Excuse me, the students take over the embassy, and what happens? And I don't know. Some folks might disagree. I we know that they take the embassy, and when I say take the embassy, I mean they are able to overcome the security for the embassy, and they go through the embassy and they find things, right? Now you gotta remember that all our embassies, you have a CIA station chief. All right, I'm not speaking out of school here. I mean, my God, you can just watch the any goddamn movie, and you see that for yourself. All right, and by the way, just about every country in the world, um, their embassy is also a post where they have their intelligence people there. You know, all Ireland, Britain, France, Germany, Cucamonga, everybody. Okay, and the students were able to go through all our paperwork, and they find all the evidence that basically tells them, hey, the United States and the Brits, but especially the United States and the CIA were the ones that overthrew our democratically elected government. Boom! All hell breaks loose. Because instead of the embassy just being taken over and everybody being, okay, get the hell out, go home, right? What happens, all the Americans get taken hostage. And that's where I come in the picture, because at that time, shortly before that, I had decided to go back in the service, and I had joined the Navy. And what happens, you have a series of misadventures, both with me and the Navy, and I wound up on the USS Nimitz, and the Nimitz was a ship that was assigned to try and do a rescue mission, which unfortunately had some loss of life, and the rescue mission failed, and it was a big mess, which also led to the election loss of President Carter and the election victory of Ronald Reagan. And we now know that the Reagan campaign actually made a deal with the Ayatollah to hold on to the hostages until the election, so that way Jimmy Carter could not get credit for getting the hostages out. And Jimmy worked his butt off to get those people out safely. And he did. But unfortunately, the way that slick deal that the Republicans worked out, they made it look like the Republicans were the heroes, and therefore Reagan got credit for something that he had nothing actually to do with. And thus, the course of history was changed, but that also set up a future scandal, the Iranian hostage, the Iranian Nicaraguan, what was that? The Iranian, what was it? The Iranian Nicaraguan scandal, which I was also involved with, because by this time I had done my tour on board the Nimitz, and I had gotten transferred to D.C., and I was assigned to the Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA, as an intelligence technician, and I needed money, so I got a part-time job on Capitol Hill, and I worked for Democratic Congressman John Bryant, who was the chairperson for the Iran-Contra Committee, and I was a congressional aide, and it was wild because for a few months, all my work that I did at the Pentagon was kind of moved away from me because I was working for a Democratic congressman that was investigating the agency that I was stationed with, that I was stationed to. So you could see that would be a problem. But anyway, that's what this whole Iranian thing is all, that's what it's all about. Okay, I tried to keep it as short as I could, but that's the whole deal right there. Okay, the Iranians are ticked because of the fact that and this whole thing about the mullahs and the ayatollahs and all this other stuff. Well, we caused that, folks. Seriously, we caused that because the people, they had a democratic government where they voted. Okay, and you didn't have the overt religious fundamentalist influence and all this other crap, all right, that they have over there now. And I'm not calling their religion crap, but what I'm saying is you had a regular democratically elected government, okay? What you have now, well, it's like the Pope. All right, well, should we invade so-and-so? Well, wait a minute, we got to check with the Pope. And that's kind of what they have over there. And all I'm saying is they wouldn't be going through all these changes if it wasn't for what we did to them from the get-go. And see, that's something that Americans in general, a lot of us don't understand. Actions have consequences. And nobody is a bigger example of not understanding that than Donald Trump. Because all that crap that he's been talking ever since he got in the White House about Iran and Obama's weakness because because Trump didn't like the damn treaty and he decided to tear it up. Well, that has consequences. Because we need to have allies over there now to try and turn down this temperature. And I'll tell you right now, our Western allies would not touch us with a 10-foot pole to try and help us defuse that situation. And if they did, they would be assholes. How the hell are you going to trust a guy? He has lied over 10,000 times. This is a fact. They have counted it out. How are you going to trust a person like that? And he tore up the goddamn treaty. Now, after he goes all the way out on the limb, he wants the same people who he cursed, who he said, oh, well, they just take advantage of America and blah, 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 blah. Now you want these same people to turn around and save your bacon? I don't think so. So we are in for a rough road. And what does Trump do? Goes down to Florida and screams about Hispanics and throws Hispanic kids into cells. And that's something else that really bugs me too. America, we have American lawyers, government lawyers, standing in front of 3 federal judges arguing that children are not entitled to a toothbrush, a bar of soap, and a blanket. Do you understand what I'm saying here? This is what our country has come to. We put children in cages after we take them away from their parents, and then we say that they are not entitled to a bar of soap, a toothbrush, and a blanket. And then you have some fundamentalist right-wing fool who wants to jump up and down and say, yes, well, the liberals are destroying America because we're a Christian nation. We're a Christian what? You would deny a child a bar of soap and a toothbrush and a blanket? And you have the nerve to have Christianity, that word come through your lips? What is it that Hillary said about Trump's followers? And some people said that she shouldn't have said the word that she used. Well, I'll use the word. How about depraved? Okay? That's another thing here in my checklist. You know, progressives and Democrats, we need to stop playing these little scaredy cat games. Because we need to stop this bullshit about thinking that somehow we are going to change hearts and minds. It's not going to happen. If you got people out there now going on 3 years, and if they don't see the horror that Trump and his followers have made of this country, they're not going to see it. Those folks are lost. And you need to stop wasting your time worrying about those buzzards. Seriously. Remember, the majority of this country is with us, okay? Don't worry about that. But if you keep acting like a bunch of goddamn cowards, that majority, a lot of them are going to stay home, just like they did when Hillary ran. And between them staying home and whatever monkey business the Russians can do, we're going to be in a lot of trouble in this upcoming election. And we have to start letting people helping people to understand. This is not politics. The stuff that you hear coming across, and don't take this the wrong way. You have some good people working at Fox. Okay, I don't know how they managed to still come on the air there at Fox, but you have some decent, journalists there. But most of those people are just pure, bigoted trash. But this is not politics that they do there. All right? We are fighting against the forces of treason in this country. And I'll tell you exactly what I mean by treason. I'm talking about the same type of treason that was more than willing to split this country in half over the question of slavery. And that's the same type of mindset that you have going on now. And that is the damn problem. Okay? You can't sit up there and tell me that you don't have a problem with a president of the United States that said he don't have a problem getting information from a foreign government about a political opponent. Because, see, once you do that, that's no longer politics. That's treason. You're getting information from an adversarial nation on a political opponent. You've taken it out of the realm of politics and into the realm of treason. For one thing, how the hell do you know if that information is true? Because they're doing something that's not to help you, that's to help them basically cause dissension within the United States. You got a president that hates his own military intelligence. He spends his time trying to, and in some cases he doesn't have to try that hard. You know, you see his followers, prep boys or what have you. Those are like the brown shirts from the Nazi days. And this business about rounding up so-called illegal immigrants. Yes, Cortez is right. Those are concentration camps. What he is doing, that meets the technical definition of a concentration camp. That's the same thing that we did to Japanese Americans at the start of World War II. And you know, I'm going to say something else. And I'm really aiming this at the United States as a whole, but especially in particular to the South. Because the South, with their fundamentalist religion, their sexism, their jingoism, they have the most out of the whole country. They have the biggest problem with people of color. And they are the ones that are mainly responsible for this country. Both the first after the end of the American Revolution, and again after the Civil War, when we went into the Reconstruction period. It was the South that worked overtime to poison the mind of the rest of the country. I'm not giving the North and the upper Midwest and the West, I'm not giving them a free pass. But I am saying, and you check out history on this, it was the South that, as I said, worked overtime, poisoning the mind and spirit towards tolerance in this country. Okay? You know who, beside lynching black folks in this country, in the South especially, you know who else they used to love to lynch? Italians. Yeah. Louisiana had a huge thing in the 1890s, lynching Italian immigrants. Yeah, right down there in New Orleans. Always the South. This paranoia, especially among the white working class. And it's so friggin' crazy with these people. And, you know, it's a funny thing. Because now that we're talking about, or some people are talking about reparations, I have a problem with reparations. And I tell you, for a number of reasons. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. Number one, most people of African heritage in the United States do not look like me. Most people of African heritage in this country are white, or what we would call white folks. Yeah, because you had such a thing about, look at Thomas Jefferson, okay, and Sally Hemings. That wasn't unique. That was typical. And you do that for a few hundred years. J. Edgar Hoover, it looks more than likely he himself comes out of an African American family. You can go on and on. Jim Baker, Ronald Reagan's buddy, his Secretary of State, has black folks in his family. So who are you talking about when you say reparations? Are they entitled? Are we talking about Africans who coming over here, immigrating here from Ghana? They have their own problem with the British Empire. I mean, I look at reparations as something that should be done, but it should be done in such a way so that people are educated as to what this country is all about and what actually happens. Okay? I want to see everybody have the opportunity to go to college for free. I want the kid from Harlem, and I want that kid from the Appalachia in West Virginia to have the opportunity to go to college. That's what I'm talking about. The reparation, where that comes in, is that there's an acknowledgement. See, I want Fox Network to be forced to acknowledge that, yeah, America became the great nation, the world power that she is because of the slave trade. Because after you took the land from the Native Americans, you used slavery to build the economy, okay? So that by the time we go into the 20th century, that is how America became a world power. Because of slavery. Because all those vast fortunes that were made because of slavery, both North and South, that's how America became America. And when those immigrants from Eastern Europe, from Italy, came over here, they came to a growing concern, going concern. It's nothing that they came over here to build. That job was done. They came over here and they added on to it. God bless them. And they did a damn good job. But the basics, that was done. We did that. Black folks did that. And won the West. I know everybody talks about Custer's last stand, but the majority of the fighting done in the Indian Wars, 9th and 10th Colored Cav, 24th and 25th Infantry. Do you know for a time at the beginning of World War I, the most trained, fit to fight military army outfits in this country were the colored outfits? Yeah. See, these are the type of things that Americans need to know. And it is scary. It is scary how much Americans don't know about their country. And see, what bothers me about it, and I know the brother, what's his name, Ta-Nehisi Coates, great writer. And I understand how they feel, but what bothers me, and I don't want to see happen, is that people, and we know who they are, and we know the people, and we know the exact people on Fox and in the White House who are going to take the word reparations and they're going to take it and they're going to twist it around into something that has nothing to do with what we're trying to have happen here. It's not about giving every black American a condo and an SUV, as someone said. It ain't about that. But what it has to be about an acknowledgement as to what started this country off. What Christopher Columbus did. Okay? And what he really did, he didn't discover America, but what he did do, he started the African slave trade for America. See? And remind our Cuban brothers and sisters that Cuba, Havana, was at one time the largest slave trading entrepreneurial outpost in the Western world. See, there is a lot to this. My father, who was from that part of the world, that whole Caribbean culture, he being from St. Thomas, and his father being from the Dominican Republic, used to tell me they had a saying: you follow a Cuban home and go around the back, and you will see an old black grandmother sitting on a rocking chair. To the fact that Cubans basically come across as being, white Americans. See? But see, that getting into a whole cultural thing. But see, this is what we have to do in this country. That should be the purpose of reparations. Reparations should be used as an educational tool. No, I don't want to see something where somebody says, okay, well, we're going to take a bunch of money and we're going to send all these black kids to college. Oh, no, we're going to send, we want everybody to go to college. Because we've had enough of people being pigeonholed. Okay, well, this cat can get over, but this cat can't. All right? No, we don't need that. We don't need any more of that. I want to see everybody educated, period. But what we need to also see, we need to see everybody being made aware of what this country is about. You got too many of these these fundamentalist, phony-ass Christians running around, especially running through the South, talking a whole bunch of bullshit about the founding fathers and all this other nonsense, and Jesus said this, and Jesus loves America, and all kinds of crap, And one of the things that reparations could do, it could actually show Americans, teach Americans the hypocrisy of this fundamentalist Christian nonsense, okay? And actually how destructive these people were to our democracy. And show why the founding fathers created the war between church and state. Against fucks like, against people like them. See? Oh, there's a lot we can do with reparations, and ain't got a damn thing to do with giving particular communities money. All right? As far as the economics of it, hey, the things that you want to, that some people talk, give black communities, no. These are things that should be done for communities in Appalachia, for communities in Harlem. These are things that should be done for the American community anyway. See? That don't necessarily have to be tied up with reparations. Reparations needs to be about education. It needs to be about truth. And it needs to be about reconciliation. That's what it needs to be about. And that's the thing that we have to keep in mind. Listen, folks, it's getting late, and it's still getting warmer in here, and I have enjoyed my time with you today, but I got to get rolling, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. I hope some of what I've said made a little sense, and I hope to goodness that you will join me right here next weekend. Same time, same place, same channel. Bless y'all. Continue having a good weekend and love each other. Take care. This is the Concerned Forum. I'm your host, Bob Gums. Love you. Peace. Ah, woo!